Welcome to the Restoration Domination Podcast, where you learn actionable advice that moves the needle and helps service-based businesses dominate. Here's your host, Rico Garcia Jr.
On Dominators, we are back yet again, this time with one of my all-time favorite guests, Rocky Hensley. Rocky, thank you so much for taking the time today to be with us. Are you ready to help us dominate?
You're goddamn right. And it's my favorite podcast.
Yeah.
So,
I love it, man. I love the enthusiasm.
Bring it. Let's do this.
Listen, so we were talking off camera, and I just want to get this up and out of the way because I just wanted to go ahead and congratulate you because it's a major achievement. Actually, you've got like a bunch of like achievements. Like it's a long list at this point. We're going to try to touch on all of them, but I'm going to be a little bit of a fanboy and talk about like this. You got like a private jet, dude.
Finally pulled the trigger, man. We were getting close to 100 franchises in 4.5 years. Not to brag, but it's exciting stuff. I'm telling anybody to listen. And we were just going from place to place, and it was taking, 2 to 3 days every time we were signing one. And, I had the money. I just was waiting to pull the trigger on it, and I just went out and bought one.
That's
like
awesome,
the hell with
dude.
it. Yeah, so I bought a Citation Cessna 2. And it's 7-seater plus the pilot and the co-pilot, and it's what's called a mid-range jet, man. And it's been game changing. You want me to give you a couple quick examples?
Hell yeah!
All right, we went and signed 2 Minnesota locations and an Iowa location. So the Minnesota locations, let's just put it this way, because we love to come out, we bring the balloons, pop the champagne, because we, no matter how many franchises we sign, we want it to be a big deal. And we don't want to lose that either, but we want them to understand that we understand what a big deal that is. So normally I'd catch a plane one day, we'd sign a franchise the next day, get on a plane, go to the next town, sign a franchise, get on a plane, go to the next town. I mean, you're talking about something that would literally take an entire week to sign three franchises. Mm-hmm. I left at 8:00 in the morning, showed up at one Minnesota location, signed them, popped the corks, high-fived them, and jumped on the plane, literally hopped. It was a 15-minute flight to the next Minnesota location, popped the corks, high-fived, ate the cake, jumped on the plane, went to Iowa, got off the plane, popped the corks, champagne, signed the deal, went to dinner. I was literally home by 10:30. Yeah, it was crazy. It's just such a game-changing. It's such a time thing. And, it's just cool as hell to have a private jet.
Yeah, man. So congratulations. So I kind of wanted to start the podcast this way because again, it's such a great achievement, right?
Well,
and what it represents, it's like, this status of like everything that you've been able to accomplish. The one thing that here's like where my marketing mind kicks in when it comes to this, right? Is one of the primary reasons that you did it. Yes, it's cool to own a plane, but really like at the core, what you did was you condensed time. Right. It's because ultimately the biggest commodity that we all have, the most valuable one that we have is time. And, I kind of want to talk a little bit about this and this overall time concept, because one of the things that you also did, a major accomplishment, like virtual high five to you, is you recently sold Icon, and the multiple was
seven times.
Seven. Mm-hmm. I mean, which is insane. So congratulations, on that. Yeah. But I want to talk about like this crunching of time because, like we were talking off camera, for me, one of the biggest things, especially with like the advent of like AI and all of these things, like what we've been able to do to help businesses, kind of really use and harness the power of AI with like I mentioned before we hit the record button, like, the voice AI systems that we've been able to put in place. And number one, save time, save training, save on, additional revenue captured, but then also all of these other automations. All of these are really attempts to do the exact same thing that you're doing, just on a grander scale, which is to condense time. So, and I'd like to try to tie that in with, give me your story on Icon again for those that are listening who are not familiar with how you built that company. But then if you can sprinkle in some of these, concepts on what you did to make your business as efficient as it was, what tools you used to kind of condense time and increase efficiency to get you to that 7 times multiple.
Okay. Well, the first thing everybody always says is, and I've done a couple classes now for the IRC and some other stuff on how to build value in your business. Okay. Because it is rare that you get a 7 multiple. I'm sure somebody's got a 7 multiple, maybe even up to a 9 multiple on a restoration company. I haven't heard of it, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Okay. Is the first thing I can tell you is you got to shift your mindset. Just change your whole mindset. Okay. Don't build a company to sell. Okay.
Wow, that's different advice. Usually I hear build a company to sell.
Do is build a company you want to buy. Okay. So every decision you make, would I want to buy this company? Because otherwise you're selling something you want to get rid of, or you're just doing something to patch or to fix and go, you know what, let's just get it and let's sell, or let's good enough. So every decision that we made over the last 2 to 3 years was, am I putting this in place? Is this a company that I want to buy? And there's 2 real values in that. And we'll go into more detail. One is, if you want to buy it, it's good, and number 2 is, it's private equity, dude. You think that, they're giving me 8 figures and you think they give a shit about me or my employees? No. Okay. So don't even factor that in, even though they tell you they're going to love your employees. They're going to treat them just like you. And that's fine. And I hope they do. And you'll have plenty to choose from. And you pick the ones that you think are going to honor that at least the most. Okay. But if you have something that's bringing you in money that is so well run that you'd want to buy it, at the closing table, they're not going to be able to negotiate at the last minute. They're not going to be able to snowball you. They're not going to be able to use your weaknesses against you, because in several times through this process, it went fairly quick. And I'll tell you the journey, and I'll try and make it as interesting as possible. But several times they basically said, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I said, no, I'm not. And several times, at least twice, they said, well, then this might be a dead deal. And both times I said, this is my little golden goose. Okay. You approached me. Okay. If you don't want to do that, and it's just a negotiating ploy with them, because they get most people that see that number and will do anything to bring it to close. Right. Okay. And you can't be desperate, and you got to be able, it's like buying a car. You walk into a car dealer, you want the best price, you got to be willing to walk away.
That's what I was going to say. I was just going to stop you right there, because again, I know, I've mentioned this so many times on the podcast, in any negotiation and any sales pitch, anytime you're, in front of a customer, regardless of what it is, the person of power is the person who's willing to walk away. Right.
That's
if you know that what you have is so good that you can either hey, look, dude, I'm good, and you genuinely mean it. That's cool. The people who value and that really see it, they're going to be like, all right, cool. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And one example was the conversation started out for a year. They wanted me to stay on for a year. And I'm like, I'm not staying on for a day.
Right.
And they're like, well, and I had to prove to them that the company runs without me, and that's also a company you want to buy. You want to buy a company that doesn't need you there, So I had to prove that. And then it got down to the closing. I'll take you back to the closing, but we'll backstep here. Well, there was a guy that I never met that's obviously the wizard behind the curtain. And one of the guys that I've been talking to the whole time is like, dude, we need you for at least a month. Okay. I know you're saying, and I'm like, no, you don't. I've done this before. They hold 10% of your money. Everybody does it. And during that month, they try and get you in every way possible to walk away and go, just, the money's not worth it.
Right.
So I learned a long time ago to not do that. Okay. So he calls me. This guy's got a real gruff voice, and he's like, hey, this is Tim, or I forget his name, but I think it was Tim. And he's like, I'm hearing that you won't give us any time, afterwards. And, we're right at the, finish line. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm not going to be beholden to you. You're buying something that can run itself. It's highly profitable. We were running at about a 23 to 27% net profit, filed taxes on clip, depending on whether gas was at this price, all the variables like that. And I was like, and I leave for 2 months. I go to Florida, I go to Texas, I go away for the winter, 2 months. And it's better when I come back than when I left.
Right.
And so he's like, well, you got to give me something. And I know I'm giving you the short version, because I know what happened was this guy finally came to the table and go, give me this guy's phone number. Because he was the hammer closing me. And then he goes, well, then I think we've got a dead deal. And I was like, okay. And didn't say another word. And he paused, and I paused, and I knew that, I'm sure he felt the same way.
the
Whoever caught
silent
that
close.
Yeah. So I just sat there, and I just sat there, and he goes, "You're really willing to walk away?" And I go, "Yes." I said, "I'll make you a deal." I said, I'm sure you have to go back and save face to your people because you're going to have to get something. I'll give you 2 days and 4 lunches.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Done."
It's great.
So
he just didn't want to come back empty-handed, right?
I stayed back for 2 days. They took 2 lunches. I guess I still owe him 2 lunches,
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, "Well, then we're closing tomorrow." This was Thursday, because we're closing tomorrow, Friday at 11.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "Dude, I haven't talked to my wife. I haven't talked to the employees. I haven't talked to anybody." He goes, "It's either tomorrow at 11. We've got everything set up, or, it really will be a dead deal." And I looked at him and I go, "See you tomorrow at 11. You can have that win. Sure.
Yeah,
no problem. Yeah. So I had to go home and tell the wife, and then we closed that quick that I hadn't even told the employees yet. So we came back after the closing, and I had to announce it to the employees and things like that. But if you've got something that you're willing to buy that like you said, that valuable, they can't hammer you. They can't hold their foot on the back of your neck, even though you want that money. I mean, you're talking 10 figures, and we were a debt-free company. So the only thing I owed was my capital gains and some state taxes, so, but it was good. And so those are the 2 things that I think are the most important. One, you really have to look at this is build it to where you'd want to buy it. Okay. And 2,
how many, just out of curiosity, how many employees total? I mean, from the front desk person to the guys on the truck, did you guys have at the time of this, at the time of sale?
42, 43. That includes salespeople, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 42, 43.
Right.
And we were doing about 7.5 million, give or take, depending on the year, but I wasn't a growth company. Like, that's where I wanted to stay.
Right.
And we did about 5, give or take, in water. So we were very water centric, and most of that, 80% of our business was commercial. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's also why we had a lot more value, because they felt like they could come in and take a company that's mostly commercial and add the restoration piece to it, which is what they're doing now. Right. Everybody knows the commercial piece is the hard piece to build. And we really didn't like doing the residential too much. I hate to say that, but because the insurance companies are just sucking the fun out of it,
Right.
And the commercial space, they don't get insurance companies involved unless it's $100,000, $150,000, because their deductibles are so damn high. Right. So we were getting paid. We had a running AR of probably, I think it was 37 days, because we were mostly commercial. Most of our AR that was past 60 days was almost all insurance work of some kind or another.
What do you think? What do you think the secret was? Like, looking back, hindsight, right? What do you think the secret was to success within the commercial realm that so many people have a problem struggling?
It's one-time plumber. I mean, that's the whole. Thank you for asking that. It's a great lead in. I want to sell some more franchises, because that's why we just closed signed our 104th franchise in 4.5 years, because.
So just before we get into that, just because I want to like follow the timeline here, and I want to make sure that we're good. So you say one Tom was that intricate piece, right? So another way of interpreting this, do you think if we would have gone back in time, let's say 4.5, 5 years prior to One Tom Plumber, even with the strong business that you had at that point, do you feel that you could have sold it for the exact amount of money?
Never. And I really mean that.
So no, right. So I just, because I want to map this out, because I always feel like when I listen to people that have some real genuine value, like, and then I'm like listening back to the interview, I'm like, dude, what the fuck happened here? Why didn't you ask this question? Right. So I try to avoid that. So basically, like, the creation that you did, right, of that bolt-on business, the lead generation machine that you basically built into your organization, one could like attribute like a huge chunk of that to your overall success with selling Icon, correct?
Oh, 100%. And I can show it to you in numbers. It's not something I have to tell you about. I mean, it's numbers. You can't argue with numbers. They're certainly quantifiable. It was a game changing, because it's a door kicker in it. I mean, I just give you the quick version. you walk in with plumbing, everybody needs emergency and service plumbing. Everybody complains that their plumbers take 2 days. And how many times have you shown up on a water damage and you're waiting for the damn plumber to show up before you can start doing the water? Well, when you take your own plumber with you, you're starting right away. It's game changing, you know. And the great thing also about plumbing is any residential is cash. You walk out that day with cash flow.
Right.
So it's just a win-win, but it's a commercial play because you start building that relationship with One Tom Plumber because they need you all the time. And, you know, they might not need you for a year and a half on the restoration side. That's why you got to have so many customers because, you know, over time, but you know, whether you have a customer or don't have a customer within a week with One Tom Plumber because they're using you.
Right.
The other thing is you get to capture those phone calls because every commercial company calls the plumber first in order to get it fixed before they call the restoration company. Well, once we get that phone call, we look at like a bear trap. You know what I'm saying? They put their damn foot in there. We're not letting go. We're going to hold them in place until we get our restoration company there so they can't call their insurance company or anybody else. So it's monumentally helpful. And that's how we went from 750,000 in total water revenue in January in 1999 to in 2023, which was our last full calendar year, and 22 to 5 million in water.
Right.
You know,
crazy.
4.8 and 5.2 in water, and 80% of that was commercial. It was that quick. You know, now obviously that's what do they call it? I was 4-year overnight success.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So with the plumbing side, and I had Leah on recently. So all you dominators out there that are listening to this, that are watching this, make sure that if you missed that particular episode, that you go back to listen to the interview that I did with Leah, which is also part of the One Tom Plumber team, where she's obviously she's a superstar at One Tom Plumber because she's helped with the business development team. But one of the conversations that she and I was having was about the importance of, again, kind of like the Bruce Lee mentality, right? It's like absorb what works, get rid of the rest. So one of the things that worked really well in restoration that many people pitch, meaning many people have built consulting companies just on this one pillar of, the restoration arena, which is business development, right? Like, how do we get business development people to do more things? That really wasn't a thing for plumbers. So you took that from the restoration arena and said, hey, how do we get an easier win, something with much more, not necessarily bigger numbers, but just more volume, and we can go ahead and plug that in. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was just, with restoration, you would have this customer, like let's say Cushman Wakefield. Everybody wants Cushman Wakefield. Everybody's got Cushman Wakefields in their area, and they were a huge business partner of ours. But we would hear all the time that this particular property manager who came from, let's say, somebody else came to Cushman Wakefield, and they would bring Belfour with them or bring somebody else with them. Okay. And so we've been spending 2 years, 3 years giving them tickets and, and going to games and stopping by and giving them breakfast sandwiches. And then they finally get a flood, and it was a 3-story, $300,000 flood. And then the person that's been there 2 damn weeks calls in our competitor. So it was one of those things where we call lessons learned meetings where, we first got One Tom Plumber up and going, we'd have these lessons learned meeting. Like, what did we learn when we walk into people? How can we use this as a boat anchor? How can we put our anchor in their office to where they can't use anyone else because we're goddamn parked there. Pardon my language. We're just so passionate about it, and like, how do we own them? How do we use One Tom Plumber to own them? And that was it. That was the answer is we used One Tom Plumber One Tom Plumber was our boat anchor,
right?
And we basically just mark our territory, and it was awesome. And then they keep relationships were so much easier to maintain because they're constantly using the plumbing company.
Right.
So they're constantly calling Leah, and Clay is another example here. Okay. I'll give you this, guys out there. If you can tell me a $3 million a year producer, I'd like to meet them, but they're rare. Okay. Leah and Clay both were, I thought, rock stars. They were both $1 million, maybe a little bit more. That's where everybody wants them. They're rocking and rolling. We started with One Tom Plumber and gave them that boat anchor to get in the door. Within 2 years, they're both 100% commission employees. Within 2 years, their second calendar year, they're both doing over $3 million. Nice. Show me any company that has a $3 million a year producer, and then show me a company that has two $3 million a year producers. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's so easy with the one Tom, it's your boat anchor. Mm-hmm. And they love it because they're commissioned. They're making triple what they were making, probably working a whole lot less, but they're constantly in contact with the Cushman Wakefields, CBR Richard Ellis's of the world, Viking Properties of the world, because they're constantly talking to them because they're using the plumbing side, but where they make their money is on the water side. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Just the one begets the next. It was just so monumentally easy that we're like, okay, how the hell do we do more of this? And that's how we built it. And then we built ourselves into something that I would want to buy,
right?
And then we took it out to the masses,
So let's stop the story there, because I want to go back, and we've mentioned this before, but for the sake of like all the new dominators out there, anybody who's just tuning in now who maybe hasn't caught like the other episodes, obviously you're giving me the condensed and slow version, right? But there was a lot of stops along the way, and this is like one of the things that I've told you personally, like I really admire, because most businesses are run with a whole lot of hope, and crossing fingers, and they're like, they try to figure out as they go, but they never really take a moment to stop, pause, and kind of clear the slate and start all over again. One time when you were developing this, like you stopped it a couple of times, right?
Yeah, we shut it down twice. But the first time we did it, you start a business, you got great colors, you got a lot of energy, and you're taking any job that walks in the door.
Right.
Well, I mean, we were 4 months in, and we realized that we're doing all this work and we're not making any money. Mm-hmm.
Not a good formula.
Not a good formula. And we also realized that we were just like every other plumbing company.
Right.
Okay.
And
so we shut it down. We brought in a new thing. We weren't going to do remodels, rebuilds, things like that.
When you say you were just, you perceived that you were just like every other plumbing company, this is like huge. What exactly was it that your like internal, compass said? You're like, whoa, hold on.
A great question. Two things. One, I don't want to do anything unless I'm making 55 to 60% or above gross profit.
Beautiful. So know your value, know what you want to sell for. Right.
And secondly, I always want to do things that distinguish ourselves, that set us apart, that help people remember us. Mm-hmm. Okay. And most plumbing companies, their whole goal is to schedule their guys out for 2 to 4 weeks. If they've got their guys scheduled out for 2 to 4 weeks, and they can pick up the phone and go, hey, Billy Bob's Plumbing, no, ma'am, we're all covered up, but we can get to you in a couple of weeks. That's heaven to them. Okay. Mm-hmm. But most of those guys aren't looking at their numbers. They're just happy if I can keep my guys busy, I know I'll make money. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they've been doing that for years and been successful, but they're never, in my opinion, going to make real money, big money, and that's what I always had interest in. So we eliminated some things that put us on jobs for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. Okay. Nice. And then we started again, and we were going, and we realized we were just still bidding everything, but we were building smaller jobs and bidding this. And we had a master plumber who was literally trying to transition us in again. It was just a constant battle, constant fight, and there was just no differentiating ourselves again. And so I shut it down. And it was my son Cameron and Angie, who was our vice president, were running the day-to-day. So you keep in mind too, my son runs the day-to-day. He's the president. I was just interjecting money, idea, I'm the visionary, and so on and so forth. And he was getting a little frustrated. And here was the thing. So this was February. We started in June. So February, I tell him, I said, look, dude, how much do you need? I know restoration. I know emergencies. I know emergency water damage. I want to set this thing up like a damn emergency water damage company, because if we can get back into water, that's when I made the most. I mean, we were doing, before we got into TPAs and got, thank God we don't do those anymore. No offense to anybody that's old to the TPAs. If it works for you, more power to you. But, we were doing $3.5 million, and we were making close to $1 million in taxable profit because we were only doing water. But then those plumbers became my competition because we started getting in the restoration business. So,
right.
So I said, we're going to do this as a restoration, basically water damage company that does plumbing. Okay. Because that's what I know. And I drew a line on the board and said, one side it said 60%, the bottom side said 59%. Mm-hmm. And I said, anything that we make 60% or more on, this is what we do. Anything that's 59 or less, we don't do this. So we put all, there's about 80 services that you do mostly of. And we put those on the board, and it ended up just being service and emergency service, plumbing. And I looked, and drains. And I looked, and I was like, those are all the ones that brought in water damage.
Right.
So we just eliminated anything that was under 60% profit. And my son is, God love him, he's a numbers person, and he crunched it. And he said, I said, how much do you need to make this model successful? And I think at that point it was close to $200,000. And I said, do you think because we were already in business, I was probably at that point, I was 1.4 million real cash into this thing.
Right.
And so great news is we did that. We went live in February with that model. The salespeople, Clay and Leah and Joey, went out to, and we wanted to specialize in commercial. In July, he gave me that $200,000 back.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and we realized that we hit the profit, just like basically that piece of the plumbing side is the water damage. And when you focus solely on that, and that's where your energy goes, that's where your company goes. And we became, we hired a master plumber that was kind of a salesperson. He wasn't that important to our everyday thing because for what we do, we don't need a master plumber unless we're going to change out a hot water heater. Or they always make fun of me for that. A water heater. Of course,
I say it the same way too, so it's fine.
Yeah, they love it when I do that. They're like, "You really own this company?" Yeah. Like, me and my son does. He's a master plumber. He's the one that knows what the hell's going on.
That's
so,
right.
And then we just went live with that. And man, as soon as like we could get to plumbing jobs in 2 hours, and and people like. There were a couple of times where we had guys sitting on the couch, literally waiting to go. And they're like, "What? Go have them clean." I'm like, "Absolutely not. You have them sit there and be ready to go. Once their truck's ready." And they're like, how can you afford to do that? I'll tell you how we can afford to do that. For anybody out there that's listening, when that Cushman Wakefield or that CBR or Richard Ellis calls, and that guy can get up from the couch and get in his truck and be there in a half an hour, guess who's going to get the next damn phone call? And then the next damn phone call. If you've got him out working in a warehouse and he's going to spend 45 minutes cleaning up after himself and put him down and his shirt and jersey's all dirty, that's how you build the business. And then
it's not the appearance of being busy, but like actually being strategic, right?
Yeah, and they're like, well, he's just sitting on his phone. It was so bad, we even brought in a damn ping pong table. So that we could keep them busy. And that was awesome. But that's also how we blew up. That's how we got our business, because then people started looking at us as the emergency guys. And it's just like water damage or anything else. They don't care about the price. And we always say we're on the high side of average because we want to make money. We want to make the 22s to 25% net profit. And I always say taxable because I can sit down with you, Rico, and I can show it to you. Everybody can fudge their numbers.
Of course, right.
But once the damn government stamps it and I pay tax on it, you can't argue with me about how much money we make.
Right.
So that's why I always say, you'll always hear me say taxable is because you're not going to argue with me about that. So, and that was the whole concept of it, is that we wanted to be able to get out there just like a water damage company within 2 hours. And we've got, we're going to do here locally we're probably on pace to do $14 million in the plumbing side. And I don't know what that is. I think it's 35 technicians, maybe 40. And we're still getting there 2.5 hours, and that's, and people can't touch us and they don't mind paying it. You can either be a great guy or you can be a Johnny on the spot, but when you can combine those, be a great technician and you're Johnny on the spot, and they make more money. I don't have a single technician that makes less than $100,000. I've got probably 15 to 20 of them making 150 or more.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so they're not going to leave. They're not going to go anywhere, and a lot of times there's just like the ping pong table thing. Sometimes they go home at 2:00, but that's okay because sometimes they don't go home till 10:00.
Right.
Just like the restoration business. So it was just a business model that no one else was willing to do. No one else was willing to, put their cojones on the table. and let somebody, because plumbing companies want to schedule their guys out. It's
Right.
just the mindset. It's the culture of the plumbing industry. And I always say we're not a plumbing company. We are a sales organization, a sales system that happens to do plumbing, drains, and
So
gates.
fucking beautiful, man. I mean,
we
I've said that so many
segment.
fucking times. I've said that so many times. I'm like, guys, like, stop saying that you're, a restorer. Stop saying that you did. Like, and I'm talking to what most would perceive to be high octave entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, stop. That's not what you do. That's just your service. What you are is you're a sales company. You're a marketing company. You're everything. Like, it just so happens that you do that. That's your deliverable, right? So I think that at one point when I had you on the show, originally, I think you guys were like at, I want to say like 25, 30 franchises.
Okay.
Maybe somewhere around there. Please don't quote me if I'm totally off. But I think it was like 20, I think it was like 25, 30, something like that.
We average about 25 a year. So
So like, I mean, it's been some ridiculous growth based on the model itself.
Thank you.
I've always been like a huge fan of the one-time plumber model. I mean, hell, one of the reasons why I've had you on the show so much, besides your amazing personality, but it's always been like, number one, it's just like
keep going. We're listening. Yeah, don't stop now. Yeah,
has been, it's been the strategy with which you've planned everything out and how effective it's been for people in the restoration arena. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, because I know that there's a lot of people out there probably listening that are somewhat like me, that they hear a concept and they're like, fuck it, if he could do it, I can do it, right?
Yeah.
Which is probably some validity to that. But
hey, let me stop you there. 100%. You're looking at a guy that doesn't have a high school diploma. I got my GED and a little bit of college.
Yeah.
Okay. I graduated
from what I did, bro. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah. Figure it the F you out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So anybody can do it if you're willing to create a system and stay. I always say, and I'm sorry to sidetrack you here because I want that question. I know where you're going, but I think there's two reasons that you have a problem in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing I'm going to say to you as a business person out there, please listen. And I know that you're going to look at yourself in the mirror and go, yep. One is you don't have a system for that particular situation. Or two, you're not holding people accountable to your system.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you every problem in your business, you don't have a system, or you're not probably more likely you're not holding them accountable. How many of you guys out there have one guy that's, he's a rock star, I just let him go, but man, he drives me crazy because he won't follow their system, blah, 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 blah. He's costing you more money than you'll ever realize.
Right.
Okay. So create a system, follow the system. And then third, make sure you're constantly reviewing the system with your people, because they know it better than you do, on how to make it better. We always start, and in meetings with, how are we going to make our system better? How do we be more amazing? So sorry to sidetrack you, but look deep within yourself, and every problem you have, create a system, and then hold people accountable to the system, no matter how hard it hurts, because that's how you become successful. That's how you grow. That's how you scale. And that's how you make 25% net profit. I don't care what you do.
The power is in the system. We know this, right? So now from here, this is where most entrepreneurs have a crossroad. You either are extremely aggressive and there might be a little bit of ego driving the scenario, and you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start in developing the system myself. Or the alternative, which clearly, so many have decided to go this route, is to say, hey, let me just partner with someone who already has a system, who's already tested the system, who's already figured out, hey, what are my margins? What are the projects that give me the margin? How does this particular project lead to a larger possibility of acquiring a water mitigation job? And then they go that route. And now you're tapping into this full system. So I want to talk about that, right? Like I want to talk about, because the proof's in the pudding. Clearly, franchises are coming in, damn near, every day, virtually every day. So, let's talk about that. What are like the major things? I mean, obviously to me, it just makes all the sense in the world. There's really no reason to pitch this. It's like, okay, shit, easy way in, lead creation machine. It makes its own money. Plus it gives me the leads that I was normally paying plumbers for. It seems fairly easy. Not, it's a no-brainer. But talk to me from a franchisee standpoint, right? Like, what are the initial apprehensions that people have, and then how do people get beyond that?
Yeah. And the number one thing we get, and I want to be challenged on this, is what why don't I just open my own plumbing company? And we always tell people, look, if you come and see what we're doing, you kick our tires, you talk to our plumbers, like we don't hold anything back. And you want to go open up your own plumbing company, we don't have a non-compete. We'll basically show you how to do it because there's plenty of business out there for good people. Okay. But we've recreated the wheel. And that one of the things that we stay true to and is that we only sell to restoration companies. Like we don't sell to anyone else. If somebody retires from Procter & Gamble and they got $1 billion that they want to invest and they want to be an entrepreneur, we won't sell to them. Like we stay true to who we are. Okay. So we have converted 4 or maybe 5 that for sure were restoration companies that already own their plumbing companies. And they just didn't have a system. They were just like me early on. They were just the next plumbing company and they were struggling. And once they realized that we're not a plumbing company, we're truly a sales system. They've all turned, they're all rocking and rolling, you know. So if somebody says, hey, why don't I just start my own plumbing company? Because that's a normal thing, especially for an entrepreneur to do. We give them their phone number. We say, call these 4 people. And if you want to start up your own company, still come in. We'll show you. Kick our tires. We'll show you. But we warn you that somebody in your area is going to buy a one-time plumber, and no offense, but we're about to whoop your ass.
Well, let's go right back to the beginning of the interview. Right? Let's go right back to the beginning of the interview. And this is like where the plane ties in, and this is where systems ties in. This is, again, you have a choice. You could either go the long route, you could still make the stops, right? You could still go to this city, this other state, and it'll take you a week. Or if you got the right tool for the job, you could do all of those in a day. And, and that's it, so for me, it's about like, okay, if you already have the roadmap, why fight it, right? Like, why go upstream? Just go where the system has already been proven, go with the formula. Most things in life are in fact a formula, right? You want to get in shape, you follow a regimen. You want to, pass a test, you follow a regimen, right? You want to have a fucking successful business, you follow that formula. Find people that are doing what, and at the end of the day, like, how much value do you put on your time? If you want to invest the next 2 to 3 years to figure something out, I'll pay for a shortcut all day. I mean, hell, that's what we do, through automations, through everything else that we do in our businesses, right? Is we pay a premium, right, to alleviate some of the time that we're having to invest in things. So I totally agree with that.
Well, one of the things too with the system is the people, and the thing that it gets most when I coach people and I bring people in and I show them what we're doing, I tell them flat out, hey, when you go back for the next probably 3 to 6 months, you know what half your job is going to be? Know what? Recruiting, because most of your people aren't rock stars. You need to recruit rock stars and then bring them into your system and make them work your system. And guess what? Rock stars, the 2 or 3, 4, 5 rock stars that you have, they want other rock stars. And once 100%. You get an entire team of rock stars, your current rock stars actually become more rock stars. It's the craziest thing. So don't be the thing that I see hold people back. One is they don't hold people accountable to the system because they don't want to lose that person. But 2, they're rocket boosters. And what I mean by rocket boosters is they help them get off the ground. Every business wants to go to the stratosphere. You want to make as much money as you can, and you got somebody that helps you get off the ground, and they've given you as much as they can. They're literally holding you back. You got to shed those rocket boosters and bring somebody in that's more skilled, more talented. You're going to pay more, but you're going to get more, and you're going to make more. Yep. So don't do this if you're not willing to start recruiting. If you're not willing to start rotating people out that are okay. I always say good works down the street. I don't want good.
Right.
I want rock stars. And if you're not a rock star, you will not make it in my world. And I tell people that literally during the interview process. Okay. And you'll have to hire 1 that doesn't work out, 2 that doesn't work out. But if you're willing to keep going, you're willing to move it forward, and you're playing the long game, you're going to be successful, because that's the thing. It's about a system. But if you don't have the right people and you're struggling, your system's going to fail because you're afraid to replace rocket boosters, or you have a sense of loyalty. And here's
the devil, also is a factor, right?
Loyalty's great, but they didn't do any of that for free. You were paying them. It was it was an exchange. You're giving them money for their time. If they did it for free, okay, you can be way more loyal. Okay. But if they're not, I hate to say this, but you got to rotate the rocket boosters out and get a rocket booster on there that's full of energy, full of fire, and because that's when you start going higher and higher. Yeah. So it's pointless to have a system if you're not willing to get the right people for the system. Every business, if you are in the business and working in the business, start creating a way to be managed from a helicopter. Mm-hmm. You're an owner. Act like an owner, okay? People work for you. You're paying them, okay? And what I mean by that, and look, you value those people. I love my people. They've been with me years and years and years because I do value them and I want their opinion and I want them into it. But what you'll see is a well-tuned machine with a great culture. And when I say culture, can I get off topic just a 100%. Little bit? Okay, culture is such an overused term. Okay, because sometimes it's complete and utter bullshit. It's just what
it's a warm, feel good type of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're going to walk in and see my guys like holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Okay, yeah, we've got 4 things that we look for in culture. We want people who want profit. We call it a profit culture. Mm-hmm. We call it a FIFO culture. Okay, and pardon my language, but it's figure it the fuck out culture. Okay, yeah. We want people that figure things out, that don't run in and go, I'm having this problem, or I'm having that problem. They just fix it and they move on and they try things and they fail forward. They figure it out. And 3, we want a customer culture. If one of our franchisees comes in, they don't move on to the next thing until they've settled that thing for them, or they've got them in touch with the person that can settle it, or they've helped them. And then they follow up to make sure they got what they needed. Okay. And 4, we have a get it done culture. Okay. That means we have a winner's culture is what we call it. Okay. We only want winners. If your teammate that's with you isn't a winner, we expect you to tell us. Mm-hmm. Tim's not a winner, man. He's a net negative. He's a cancer. Mm-hmm. Those are what we're looking for. We want people who want to help us make profit. We want people who figure things out. We want people who want great teammates, and we want to make sure that the customer is taken care of. That's our culture. And when you walk in and see, that's what we preach. That's what we talk about. It's not like, oh, we're going to hold hands and we're going to sing songs. No, we walk in the door. It's a business. Mm-hmm. It's a get it done. And look, winners want to be around winners.
100%.
So if you don't have a winner, rotate them out. And back to my last point, if I do mentor people, I tell them point blank, if you're not going to at least schedule 10 hours every single week to do nothing but recruit and replace the people that are not rock stars, my mentorship is over. Mm-hmm. Because you're not going to move your business forward with good. You're going to move business forward with rock stars. That's how you grow. That's how you scale. That's how you make money, is bringing in talent and keeping it going until you reach the talent. Now, once you reach those people and you got those people, it's amazing what you can get done with literally half the amount of people.
Yep.
I'll put half as many people against 3 times as many people sometimes, and we'll whoop their ass because I've got talent,
and talent begets talent, right? Success begets success, talent. Right? And even I've, I know when I'm around like a high octave individual, right? Yeah. And back in the day, for those that don't know, I always did like high ticket sales. That was always my thing, right? Like 700 phone calls a day. Like that was the thing in the world of finance. And I could tell you, and I was fucking good. But you got me next to another guy who was a killer, and his numbers got better and my numbers got better. And it was that friendly competition. But you would sit me next to some mediocre guy. Mm-hmm. And don't ask me why. All of a sudden, my numbers got shittier. My pitch didn't get shittier, but it's just that energy.
To me, number one, you didn't have to work that hard.
Right.
Yeah. And that Lee and Clay are a perfect example. It was awesome to see them friendly competing with each other. They would help each other do trade shows. They would help each other do golf outings. They would help each other do that. But at the same time, once they started, Leah started climbing above him and he's like, nah, not today. And he's out seeing 10 more people, and then Leah would be like, damn, Clay's kicking my ass. And then she'd go out and see 10 people. It's exactly what you said. You get rock stars and you pit them against each other, but get them a great culture where they're helping each other at the same time. What do they say? A high tide rises all boats.
Yep.
So if you don't hear anything else from what I'm telling you, guys, if you don't take anything else away from this, you're not going to be a high achieving company if you don't have all high achieving people. And look, until you have all high achieving people, keep recruiting, keep rotating. And I hate to say that, but that's the way it is, because that one person, the two people that you really like, they're going to bring them down. Just what Rico said.
It's the formula. It sucks, but let's call a spade, right? There's a formula. If you're trying to fucking make a cake, you're trying to make a fucking recipe. If that one ingredient isn't right, what do you got to do? You got to keep finding until you find that right ingredient, that right piece that makes it all come together. So bottom line is, I want to end with this, right? For all of those dominators out there that they're like, man, okay, I've seen the interviews, I've seen the success. This isn't a fluke. This isn't a one-time plumber with only one office, and he's talking about one success story and one isolated case. Like, now I've kind of been a fly on the wall. I've seen my friendly competition. You come on board, dominate the market, add real zeros to their bottom line, and they're finally ready to take some action. What do they do? Who do they reach out to? What's their next step?
Great question. They get on onetom.com or onetomeplumber.com. Either one works, and they hit the franchise button. You can reach out to me, Rocky, at onetom.com. Hell, I'll even give you my damn cell phone number, because it's 513-678-5818, because I feel so passionate about this. Obviously, I make money, but keep in mind, too, we give you so much support because we realize that once you become part of One Tom Plumber, our success is intertwined. Mm-hmm. Okay. We're going to move heaven and earth to make you successful, because the more money you make, the more money we make. We want you to make a shit ton of money.
Right. It's a value exchange.
Yeah. We want to change your life. And keep in mind, too, you've already got a successful restoration company. What One Tom Plumber is, and it's actually, I can show you this all day long, it's actually more profitable by percentage than restoration. It's craziness, but we're your second home, your generational wealth, your bigger boat. Use it for that. Keep living your regular life. Bring One Tom Plumber in, and that's what we do. That's what we sell, and that's who we are. And like the jet, my son runs the day-to-day, so even I had to go to him and go, hey, dude, I want to buy a company jet, and we're a debt-free company. He's like, do you know how much it's going to cost? You know how much we have to write a check for? And I said, absolutely. And I had to prove to him, as you always should have an accountability piece, how it's just not an ego move. It's actually going to save us money. It's going to move the needle. It's going to make us do this. And by the time we were done, he was out helping me look for planes, and bought an 8-seater jet. And we, we're rocking and rolling and not looking back. And, so you should always have an accountability piece too. You should always have somebody that you have to bounce things off of. And he's my, my balance, too. He's a very T's and I's, I wouldn't be as successful without people like him, because I'm all over the place. I'm a get it done, move it forward, and hope, fix it as we go type person. So hire people that are not you. Hire people that are better at everything else that you are, and trust them, and let them fail. We always call failing forward, because it's amazing how much more you learn from trying stuff and figuring stuff out and moving it forward and that's how you become an expert at something.
100%. 100%. Rocky, thank you so much, man. I always love the time that you and I have together on the podcast. It's always fun. I love the energy. I love everything that One Tom represents. And yeah, man. So for all those dominators out there, make sure that you check out the video description as well as the show notes below. I'm going to go ahead and leave links, going to leave phone numbers, going to leave some really good information for you to sink your teeth into there in case you want to go ahead and reach out to Rocky personally or somebody on the One Tom Plumber team. And as always, make sure that you stay tuned, because over the next several weeks, we're going to be dropping some absolute gems, plenty of other guests that are going to be coming on, lots of solo episodes with some of my, crazy marketing and automation tricks that I've been working on over the past year and how that's actually moved the needle. But as always, hustle, hack, dominate. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, your #1 resource for tips, tricks, and hacks to help your business grow. Subscribe to our channel and follow us for more Restoration Domination. And follow our host at Rico Garcia Jr. on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.